Call the Thursday, April 23rd City Commission meeting to order. First item on the agenda will be the April 9th minutes. Any changes?
I have none.
No. Stand as written. Next item on the agenda will be the financial statement for March of 2020.
Kim Rupp, Director of Finance. This is a financial summary of revenue and expenditures for the City of Hayes, month ended March 31, 2020. Revenues in March totaled $2,594,262. That's an increase of $331,500 when we compare to this time last year. Some notable areas of increased revenue: interest income across all funds was up $140,000. And I realize in today's environment that's a bit odd to be talking about, but did want to mention it and just note that we had $4 million in CDs maturing this month at an average rate of 2.6, whereas a year ago it was $3 million maturing at a rate of 1.9. Airport Improvement Fund revenue was up $25,000 due to a transfer in from the CVB contingency to supplement enhancements at the airport. Parks Improvement revenue increased to $8,900 due to the receipt of a memorial donation. And residential water consumption was flat, while business water consumption was up 16% in March. That translates into a 6.9% increase in combined water revenue when compared to a year ago. Year-to-date water and conservation revenue is up 7.2%. There were no areas of significant revenue decreases. Expenditures in March totaled $2,749,095. This is a decrease of $87,300. Some increased expenditures. Airport Improvement Fund expenditures were up $85,000 due in large part to the purchase of a Kubota tractor with a snow broom. Special Park and Recreation expenditures rose $30,600 for the improvement to 8 park sidewalks throughout town. And the first 2020 semi-annual payment on the water reclamation revolving loan occurred in March as opposed to February of 2019, so that increased expenditures $922,000. Notable areas of decreased expenditure: new equipment for the Bickel-Schmidt Sports Complex was down $6,800 for the purchase of windscreens at this time last year. City Commission Capital Reserve expenditures fell $783,500. That was the purchase of the property at 27th and Commerce a year ago. And there were 3 payrolls a year ago this month, therefore salaries and benefits are down to $381,000 across all funds. Month to date, general fund and sales tax collections were at $593,790. That's an increase of $78,990 or 15% compared to last year. Year-to-date collections are at $1,966,774, up $100,400 or 5.4%. The 6-month average is at 6.77, and that's an increase of 4.5 when compared to a year ago. The report of top 10 quarter-to-date sales tax collections by classification was up $156,380 or 7.9%. The largest categorical increase there was in supermarkets, convenience, and liquor stores, up 33%. Telecommunications up 26%. The portfolio of certificates of deposit on March 31, 2020 totaled $55.55 million with a weighted average interest rate of 2%. That's down 43 basis points from a year ago. Total of the U.S. Treasuries at par value is 1.477 with a weighted average yield of maturity at 1.59. Total balance of the money market account on March 31 was $6 million with a current yield of 34 basis points. And you may have noticed that that balance has spiked a little. We're putting a few funds away for the payment to KDOT for the North Vine corridor. Plus, rates have tanked over the last few weeks, so kind of holding on, to see what happens. Total investments are up $2.277 million when compared to this time last year.
I'll make a motion that we accept the March 2020 financial statement.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Kim, on the where you have the supermarkets, convenience stores, liquor store up 33%. I know a lot of these numbers are a lag of 2 months.
Correct.
Is that the same on those?
Correct.
Just curious with grocery stores, with the pandemic, what the increase will be there.
We will be watching that.
Yeah. I appreciate each month when we have this, and especially going forward from now on, that we will know, basically what our finances are doing, and we won't be surprised, at budget time. So we can plan for this for next year.
And I know a lot of us have had meetings with Toby, and it sounds like city staff has already kind of tightened their belt and seeing what we can do to save, in the near future because of, we know the returns aren't going to be where they were, and I'm hoping we will continue to do that.
Yeah, Toby Doherty, City Manager. So, working with Kim, we did some projections on what we think the losses will be to the obvious things. First of all, sales tax and transient guest tax, and that forecasting is going to be updated next week because we have a little fresher numbers, and we'll keep updating it as we go. But the further we go along, we're going to be losing things, court fines and forfeitures, things like that. We'll try to figure out what the effect of that's going to be. The departments have all been tasked with finding 2020 cuts. What can we cut out of the budget in 2020? And then as everybody's preparing their 2021 budget, the mandate was, let's keep things as lean as possible for 2021. We've talked about this before, though. We are in a good position. The City Commission has adequately funded reserves. We aren't living hand to mouth or paycheck to paycheck. We have a good unreserved fund balance, and so that doesn't mean we're blind or oblivious to making cuts. That means that if we make cuts that may not be exactly commensurate with the revenue loss, we do have the ability to absorb that and then hopefully recoup that at a later date. So you'll definitely be hearing a lot more on that.
Good. That's good to hear.
Kind of go on that a little bit. Is there any risk to, we see it from other communities, it's hard to compare to like Manhattan, Topeka, but we're seeing other communities at risk of furloughing their city employees. Do we have any risk of that for our employees?
We're not there yet, and it's really not something I've considered right now. It would be a reactionary measure that comes later on. I can't see enough of a revenue decline that we couldn't absorb and move forward, that we would have to result either of furloughs or layoffs. Worst case scenario, we might get to a point where we put hiring freezes in place and not fill positions as they vacate. We have a certain amount of turnover, and hopefully sort of downsize a little bit that way. But furloughing's a pretty drastic cut that I don't see us taking right now.
Good.
I think you'll see other cities that will be furloughing people, and I think that's a very good indication on where they are financially, and that's one thing that we have looked forward to and taken the city manager and the financial manager's advice on to make sure that everything has been fully funded every year. We could have spent money on something else, but we wanted to make sure that when that rainy day did show up, we weren't caught shorthanded. So,
and we're going to do our best to not. The commission does have a rainy day fund, and we're going to do our best to not ever advocate that you have to dip into that. We may deplete the unreserved fund balance and have to figure out a way to put that back in over the next few years. But it's our goal to not have to dip into the reserves for operational type expenses. We'll make operational corrections before we make that recommendation.
that's great.
So I don't want to.
Sorry.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like to me like services to the community, we won't be cutting anytime soon.
No. Nothing noticeable right now. I can't promise what the summer may bring or how slow the economy. And I mean, if everybody understands what's going on now in the ag market and the oil market, and we don't know what the long-term effects of the current situation is going to be. So I can't tell you what type of corrections we may have to make in the future, but we do have a very labor-intensive general fund budget. I mean, you look at like police and fire, and it's in the 90-some percentile of their budget is salaries. And we have a lot of park space, but we have a lot of parks workers, we have a lot of public works workers that we can cut back on materials, but then we have people with nothing to do because they have no materials to work on, or we can, do a mixture of both. But right now, I don't think we're there.
Having been part of the budgeting process for the last 3 or 4 years, I'm not concerned at all about how the department heads are going to look at their budgets in any year. I've watched them, all department heads, look for opportunities in those departments, and I've watched things come in under budget, allowing their reserves to look better. And I appreciate all of our staff and the way they look at the budget process, and I'm sure they'll do the same this year.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kim and Toby. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's no citizen comments that were emailed in. No consent agenda. Next item on the agenda would be North Vine Street Corridor Project, authority to award contract and commitment of city funds.
Good evening, Commissioners. John Brown, Project Manager. Since December of 2015, city staff has been working on the development of a project to improve Vine Street from 32nd Street to the 41st and Mopar intersection. The project will improve pavement, curb and gutter, sidewalk, storm sewer, water mains, signage, pavement marking, street lighting, and pedestrian signals associated with the reconstruction of approximately 3,400 lineal feet of Vine Street from just south of 32nd Street to just north of 41st and Mopar. The project includes 4 roundabouts, one at the intersection of 32nd and 33rd Street, a second at the intersection of 37th Street, a third at the eastbound I-70 ramps, and the fourth is at the intersection of 41st and Mopar. The project will also reconstruct the west frontage road, connect West 37th Street to Skyline, and extends Skyline to 41st Street. Construction is scheduled to begin in May and run through the 2 construction seasons, with completion occurring in the fall of 2021. Bids were opened on March 25th at KDOT in Topeka. All bids were reviewed by KDOT, the city's engineering consultant, and city staff. The low bid is higher than both the engineer's estimate and KDOT's estimate. The city is able to cover the higher than estimated cost of construction and believe it is in the best to accept the low bid and move forward with the project. As detailed in the project cost summary sheet from KDOT that's in your packets, the bid from Smoky Hill, combined with $1.2 million for construction engineering, totals $13.1 million. Subtracting out the $6 million build grant leaves the city's share at $7.1 million. Under an agreement between KDOT and the City of Hayes, executed in February, KDOT will be administering the construction of the project. KDOT has provided a resolution authorizing the award of construction contract and committing city funds for the project, which are to be paid to KDOT by May the 14th. Using the funds paid to KDOT and the build grant funds, KDOT will make payments to the contractor as the project progresses. After construction, if there's any change orders or variations in costs, KDOT will audit the project and credit the city any overpayment or bill the city any additional amount due. Within the last 15 years, Smoky Hill Construction has completed 4 projects in the city of Hayes. I was involved in each of these projects, and I never had any trouble with Smoky Hill Construction. They also have done notable work at Fort Hays State University as well. We also checked projects of similar size and scope throughout the state. Most recently, they did the Santa Fe Streetscape project in downtown Salina. The city engineer in Salina stated, and I quote, "Smoky Hill exemplified good coordination, communication, scheduling, and final work product." Smoky Hill regularly does millions of dollars of KDOT projects each year, and they have constructed 5 projects that included roundabouts. So your options tonight are to adopt the resolution authorizing KDOT to award the bid to Smoky Hill Construction and commit city funds for the project, or you can direct staff to another option, or you can do nothing. And the action requested is on the screen.
I move we authorize the mayor to sign the resolution for KDOT authorizing commitment of city funds and awarding a contract to Smoky Hill Construction for the North Vine Street Corridor Project. The city share to be paid to KDOT is $7.111 million from the Capital Projects Fund.
I'll second.
Any comments, questions?
I guess I'll start. Must say that we were all disappointed when the bids came in, that they were higher than what we expected, but I think there's several reasons of that. One is the pandemic that's going on, and the other reason, I think, is the how complex this job is. You know, engineers figure cubic yards, lineal feet, cost of material, cost of manpower, and that's easy on a normal street. But to estimate the cost for a complex job such as this, I don't believe that engineers have a full grasp of what it takes to do that. You know, they draw circles on paper and they say, go do it. But they don't actually do the work. The two bidders that we have, they've both done roundabouts, and this is probably the most labor-intensive and complex project as far as roundabouts that they've done. But they've also learned from their other roundabout projects on what it actually takes to get it done. And so I think a lot of this has to do with the engineers and their estimating of this. You know, people that actually do the job have a better understanding of what the labor is and what it's going to cost to do it. You know, they always say that construction people, they build, and if you can't build, then you become an engineer. And I think that's true, especially in this case. And you know, if we wait 6 months to rebid, I have no idea of what kind of bids we'll get, whether they're going to be higher, lower, if we'll get any bids. We may not get any. Neither one of these bidders may want to bid again. They may have moved on to other projects by that time and tied up, and they're not interested. You know, will this pandemic still be going on at that time? I don't know. But I don't believe that anyone can say for sure. And if they can say what the project's going to be like and the bidding environment and the pandemic in 6 months, then I think they should go to the casinos as soon as they open and put their money on the line, because, you know, if you are that smart, then you're a lot smarter than the rest of us. So I do know this much, that what the bids are today, I know that we can afford to do it today, but I don't know what will happen in 6 months, and that's what really bothers me. So I have to live for today, not wishing what's going to happen in 6 months. So I feel like we need to get this construction started on this project.
I'll take the mic then. I have about 4 questions, and then I'll speak my thoughts. So the first question: Ellis County just passed a sales tax, half-cent sales tax. By statute, the city of Hayes will collect from that somewhere, estimates $600,000 to $800,000 a year for the next 10 years. Is there a scenario where that new source of revenue would have to be used to fund this project?
There's not a scenario in our plans. I mean, we don't plan for that scenario. The only scenario that I would see is if for some reason our transient guest taxes didn't go back to normal anytime soon, and they actually went low and stayed low, that you might not collect enough of transient guest taxes to pay this off in a nominal time frame. So you'd look at an extended bond from that, refinancing, or finding another revenue source.
Which leads into my next question. The transient guest tax was passed. There's a 2%. I think it's 7% total, but 2% of it's put towards this project, and that collects, I believe, $360,000 in normal scenario. That's kind of how much we collect out of that for this project.
Currently, yes. Yes.
Speak to the scenario that could happen where that doesn't collect enough, and how do we fund the gap if this isn't what we expect it to be?
I think you would have to have a lot of hotels shut down because the current scenario doesn't include the 2 new hotels that are under construction that are going to be a draw, and the development of 157 that is going to include hotels. So you would have to see either those hotels not come online and a reduction, or you'd have to see a couple of those hotels come online and a wholesale reduction in the other hotels. That's why we feel fairly confident in making a recommendation like that. Kim's fairly conservative with his estimates on that. And we deal with the financial advisor looking at what type of bond placements we can get and what type of interest rates, things like
What
that.
is the 360 number? Is that an average at this point, or is that lower than average?
I think that's an average right now, right?
Over how many years? Thank you, Kim.
So I went back 3 years, and I can extrapolate, since we've been collecting the 5% for a number of years, I was able to extrapolate and figure the 2%. So I averaged 3 years of transient guest tax, previous 3 years.
Does that show where, like the ambassador, would that have been maybe 3 years ago, and that's been,
Right about when the ambassador went off.
and then, so we've actually had a reduction in room numbers over the last 3 years?
Well, when you consider the Marriott coming online, and there was one other one, I think they got us back pretty close to where we were.
Okay.
Particularly because over the last few years of the ambassador, it wasn't doing well anyway. So.
Do we have a projection of how many rooms are over the next 3 years that will be coming online?
I think that's going to be close to 140 to 200 because there's a couple of hotels. One has got about 60 rooms and the other one about 70 rooms. So between the Hilton Garden Inn and the Abbott Hotel going on, I believe that was about 130, 140 rooms.
My next question, we roughly have about $8 million outstanding in bonds already. We're looking at another $7 million, for all intents and purposes, almost doubling the amount that the city is going to be responsible for. Is there any concern of that hurting our credit rating or our ability to pay that much more in debt obligations?
No, the short answer is no. So cities in Kansas are limited statutorily to how much debt they can carry, and it's a ratio of your total assessed valuation. The city commission has a part of their comprehensive financial management policy that cuts that by half. That says the state allows X amount of dollars, we're going to limit that by half. And right now we are significantly below that. Of the $8 million general obligation bond, most of those are actually through benefit districts. So those will be paid for by the people that own lots in benefit districts. I believe the only GO bond debt that we have was recently refinanced, and I think it was the remnants of the North Vine Street corridor, the system enhancement project up in when the reverse access roads and all that were put in, and then the 22nd Street extension. I think that was the last thing that was actually financed, and ever since then, City Commission's been paying cash for projects. So we actually, in the grand scheme of things, we have very small amount of debt as a city, general obligation debt.
Kind of my final question, kind of two-part. Would you go over how the build grant came to be $6 million as part of this project? I called you earlier today actually to kind of get a little bit of better understanding, because in a way it looks like it's covering half of it, but that's not really how we got to $6 million. It's not really a dollar-to-dollar program. So if you'd oblige by kind of explaining how we came to that $6 million, and then kind of a follow-up to that is if the estimates had come in higher, is there any thought that the build grant might have been more than what we got out of the $6 million?
The first part of the question about the build grant. So in the initial scheme of things, the corridor design didn't include the eastbound on and off ramp feature. So the scope of the project was smaller. It also didn't include the Skyline connection in its current form. And so the scope was smaller, and we were looking at funding it all with stormwater and water sewer paying their share, and then transit guest tax paying the rest of it. So then we looked at Bill Grant, and that was the previous assistant city manager, and then John. They, working with our engineers, once we got WSP on board that had experience in Bill Grant applications, thought we may actually have a chance at this. So they floated a couple trial balloons with Federal Highway Administration officials. They thought we had a good project, so an application was put together. At that time, the bid estimate was only around $8 million. And so we asked for the whole thing to be paid for with a Bill Grant. They came back with an award of $6.05 million, and we thought we had done pretty well. If we had have gone in, with a $12 million project and asked for $12 million, I don't know if they still would have given $6 or if they might have given more. I can tell you that Ellis County, the following year, has almost an $11 million project on the Northwest Corridor project that they had asked for full funding for, and they were awarded a little over $6 million. So whether $6 million is a good price range for projects of a certain scale, I don't know. But I do know that when the bids come high, one of the first things I did is reach out to federal highway officials and ask if there was additional dollars to help cover the shortfall. And their answer was there wasn't immediate dollars, that essentially their entire allocation was obligated. So if they were given $550 million, they have it all allocated towards projects like ours. But they did say that if there are projects that come in under bid, those monies are then reallocated to projects that are overbid on a competitive need basis. So we do plan on if the commission moves forward, we do plan on trying to make a competitive run for those dollars. But that won't be known until later this year and into early next year.
And it just kind of put this out there for people that talk about saving tax dollars. On a federal bill grant, if hypothetically, again, if we don't accept a federal bill grant, somebody else will. So it doesn't necessarily save tax dollars by us not getting the bill grant. Somebody else would gladly say, we will take that $6 million ourselves.
They are 2018 allocated Federal Highway Administration dollars. So you're correct. If we don't take them, they're going to be reallocated to another project in that year's program, probably.
Well, that's my question. So here's my thoughts. I've kind of come to the conclusion that the estimates that we've been working off are just flat wrong. And that the cost of this project that we're looking at is probably correct. However, because the estimates were so far off, I believe that there's a compounding problem here. And I don't think it's just a $3 million problem. I think it's more like $5 million problem. And the reason I think that is because going off the project estimate on March 18th that this whole project's been based on, we were looking at bonding $4 million over 15 years. That's $9,000 worth of interest on that bond. So Hayes would have been obligated to pay $4.9 million. We're now looking at, because of the cost increase of the construction, a $7.1 million bond over 25 years. That is $2.9 million in interest. So the obligation that Hayes will pay on that bond is $9.9 million. The increase in construction has led in an increase in construction cost, and the increase in time is a compounding effect from going from a $4.9 million to potentially $9.9 million obligation that I just can't reconcile voting for the approval of the estimates coming in that far off to reconcile it by saying we can approve this bid. I see it as basically being told we should take out a larger mortgage over a longer period of time for a house that is just too big for us. And so that's the conclusion that I've come to as I look at the numbers on this project.
I think Michael makes some great points. I mean, tonight I'll be voting to reject these bids. I just want to explore further why there's such a drastic difference in the estimate between KDOT, the engineers, and the price bids. I mean, I cannot accept that there's that drastic of a difference without any concrete evidence behind it. The difference for me is too much to accept without understanding why. The other reason is our current situation that we're in now. I think we'd be better off pushing it down the line and getting some concrete numbers from where we're going to be at after the summer. See how businesses bounce back. See what other funds might be available for maybe the CARES Act down the line. We can say we had to push back a huge project that's supposed to benefit our corridor, and we couldn't do it because we didn't have the ability to do it at the time. I think reviewing it in the fall will at least give us some insight into the impact the virus has had on our community and our figures, and we can get some more time to figure out why there was such a drastic difference. I respect the rest of the commissioners' decisions this evening. I know we've all done extensive research and talked to many people, contractors, citizens, businesses. I believe we're all up here doing what we believe is best for the city of Hayes. I just can't at this time move forward with something without having more concrete evidence behind it.
I appreciate the comments of my fellow commissioners, as always. My saying is, if we all agree, 4 of us can stay home. So as we're all here, 5 of us are here, and we all have our opinion. My opinion hasn't changed. I'm in favor of the project. I'm in favor of the project now. Anyone that knows me knows I don't come to these conclusions easily. I spend a lot of time researching, doing my own due diligence. There's been a couple projects over the last 3 or 4 years that people probably haven't liked that I've done that much due diligence, but I have. I've spent a lot of time talking to developers and contractors that I've known over the years from my banking career. I made calls to bankers that I've been around a long time, and somebody asked me today, did any of them go through 86, 87? I said, yeah, me and about 3 others that I talked to. So I feel like I've really reached out. I went open-minded. I know many people probably think I'm closed-minded about this, and I just want this done no matter what. I care more about this community than that. And if anybody doubts that, I think you could talk to people that have known me for the last 40 years in this community. I'm proud of this community. I'm proud of the work that we do. I'm proud of this commission. I'm proud that we all have our own opinion. I'll be voting yes, and I will stand beside every one of these commissioners as we walk out the door and go forward.
As I listen to all you guys' comments, honestly, I don't think any of us are wrong. I think we all have different opinions, but it's evident. We've all been bouncing questions through Toby. I feel bad for you, Toby, the last couple of weeks. I think you probably answered the same question 100 times, but that's your job and that's our job to ask. And we've all, this is the most emails, contacts I've had on a long time on a project, but it's very important to our community. This is a change for our community for maybe ever. And I don't. It's never okay to overspend. And yes, our community, our nation is going through something that none of us have ever seen, and I don't think we'll ever see again. I hope not, anyway. But I truly believe in moving our community forward. One thing that I learned really fast is the city commission here. You don't come in and just, oh my gosh, we're doing this tomorrow. I mean, we plan 2, 3, 4 years out. This has been talked about, and maybe I'm wrong, and you can tell me, Toby, since I've been on, or shortly after in 2013. And it's kind of like the water, there's been so many studies. To me, eventually, you just got to move on and, do what's best for the community. I think this is best for the community. I think it will be many years before we see if it's good for our community, probably way after I'm a commissioner. I was talking to a guy today that he said this will determine my fate as a commissioner. So be it. I know in my heart I'm doing what I think is best for my community, And, I won't give up, whether this is the last big project I'm on. We just completed a sewer plant, and, they came within budget and what we said it was going to be, and it's doing great work for our community, as we said it would do. And I just believe there's a lot of work, a lot of money has been spent on this, and if I knew if we delayed this 6 months that we could save $3 million, $4 million, $5 million, I'd 100% be for that. If you look what they showed up there, the cost of roundabouts are done in Junction City and other communities. As Commissioner Mellick said, I believe that the estimates we had were just flat wrong, and I think the numbers. I've had people say, well, the Hayes is in great shape, and we got this bill grant, they're taking advantage of us. I hope to God that's wrong. I really hope they're wrong, but we are in good shape. And with what we have in place and what policies we have in place, our community, even after this pandemic, 2 or 3 years down the road, we're going to be in good shape. Is this going to hurt businesses? Absolutely, yes, it's going to hurt. Me as a downtown business, I'm concerned that people are going to have a hard time getting downtown. But we'll figure it out. We always do. We're figuring out how to get through this. It will work, and I believe I'll be voting for it. So if there's anything else, I'll call for any other questions? Okay, I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion passes 3-2. Next item on the agenda, North Vine Street Corridor Project Construction Engineering Services.
John Brown, Project Manager. As mentioned during the previous agenda item, the North Vine Street Corridor Project is funded in part by a build grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation and is being administered through KDOT. As such, the project needs to be inspected by an engineering firm pre-qualified by KDOT to inspect state and federal projects. Firms on KDOT's pre-qualified list were solicited, and Kirkham Michael was the only firm that submitted a proposal. That proposal was reviewed by city staff, and Kirkham Michael was found to be qualified to accomplish the required services. Subsequently, they submitted a scope and a fee in the amount of $1,246,225, which is in line with typical construction engineering fees for similar projects at slightly more than 10% of the construction cost. The work estimate form in your packet details the scope and fee for Kirkham Michael to provide construction engineering inspection for this project. Those services will occur over 2 construction seasons from May 2020 through substantial completion in November 2021 and on until the final project closeout in May of 2022. Kirkham Michael will be working under an existing contract that they have with KDOT for on-call inspection services, and KDOT will make the direct payments to Kirkham Michael for said services. The $1.2 million for construction engineering services is included in the $7.1 million due to KDOT as discussed in the previous agenda item regarding the authority to award and commitment of funds. So your options are to authorize the city manager to sign the work estimate form. You can direct staff to another option, or you can do nothing. And the action requested is on the screen.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the city manager to sign a work estimate form with Kirkham Michael for construction engineering services related to the construction of the North Vine Corridor project.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. John, how do we, on a project like this, say we get started and they're saying, oh, we didn't realize this and it's going to cost this much more. How do we control that? Is there anything we can do to hold them to where this is what you said it's going to cost, this is what it's going to be?
Are you talking in terms of the construction contract?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Right. So that would be a change order to the contract that for construction, and any change orders would have to be vetted through KDOT and the city. Both the city and KDOT have to sign off on a change order, and the contractors have to document extensively the basis for the change order and document the actual costs related to that change in work, and then that would go through that channel before it would be approved.
Comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Four, passes,
No, you're fine.
passes 4-1? Okay.
I figure if we got the construction project, we're gonna need somebody to look after it now.
I know, you threw me for a loop, but
Good
thank you.
point.
Thank you, John. Next item on the agenda would be, we had progress.
Good evening, Colin Belzer, Assistant City Manager. So for the last month, we'll start with Public Works. The Public Works Department, or the Service Division, repaired a storm inlet at the end of Willow, the north end of Willow, that had failed. So it's the very far section. They replaced that, and then they shored it up with a wing walls. So they poured that, and you can see kind of on the far right picture the concrete walls, and then they replaced it with riprap. Alley reconstruction, they've done some work or working on the Hayes Chevrolet alley. It's being constructed with concrete. It's expected to be completed May 15th, pending any weather conditions. Fire department is out testing fire hydrants. This is something they do annually. There's approximately 1,100 hydrants throughout town. In addition, for obviously fire safety purposes, this helps flush the city's water system as well. Parks Department has planted 175 seedling trees at our nursery. They installed some delineators in the East Frontier Park to make sure traffic doesn't drive on the grass and try and preserve that area. They have restriped parking lots at the Hayes Aquatic Park and Municipal Park. As you can see, the picture on the left is what they looked like prior, and then the middle and the far right pictures are after with the striping completed. They've sprayed over 100 pine trees for pine tip blight. They have about 200 more to go in the city. At the golf course, they've constructed new tee boxes for alternatives on hole 12 and 16. Information technology. So with the new stay order from the governor, we've had to adjust, and we are allowing 26 users to work from home when they can. So IT's been working on setting that up, and it is working and providing ongoing support. They also took time, very importantly, to update the GIS system for 911 system, so to make sure emergency responders are sent to the correct locations. The police department received the AAA Platinum Award. This is the highest award given by AAA, and we were one of only 51 law enforcement agencies in Kansas to be honored with that. At the water department, the East Primary clarifier, they replaced the pump down in the bottom to clean out the lime and soda ash residue, and that's what gets pumped to the pits behind the water plant to the east of the water plant. Even though we've had some social distancing restrictions, et cetera, they were able to judge the posters for the water poster contest. We had approximately 182 poster entries. They have been selected for winners, and they're being notified at this time. Also in the water conservation specialist Holly Dickman wrote an article that was originally published on the Hayes Post. It was picked up as a featured article for the EPA Water Sense, which is shared with many communities across the United States. A while ago, Holly came here and talked to you, Holly Dickman talked to you about the buffalo grass conversion that we're doing. So this is an actual pre-inspection of a lawn of a homeowner who is going to be undertaking that, replacing their Kentucky bluegrass to buffalo grass. That's exactly what the intent of the program was. Also, during these times, they've been sharing some tips via Facebook, just on how to save water. Obviously, this one with...
I didn't know we had sound.
CVB, we're able to provide about 1,400 tote bags for curbside pickup of school supplies in Ellis County. And then they also dropped off several hundred Hayes postcards with positive message to the area living facility residents and hotel staff. These items had older logo bordered on them, so that's how we were able to use them in a good way during this time. And then in project management, 19th Street water line is about wrapped up, or it is. They have completed it. They replaced a 2-block section of old 4-inch water main to 8-inch. You might have seen some of it go underneath Vine Street with concrete being repoured in front of Dillon's. And then curb and brick repair, Morgan Brothers Construction's completed the reconstruction of the 1100 block of Pine and the 1500 block of Walnut. I think they also completed 10th Street. Okay, today they completed 10th Street. And soon they'll be repairing several joints on Main Street and 13th Street between Fort and Main. That's about it.
Could they do that during the stay-at-home? Good stuff. All right. Commissioner Miller, do you have anything else?
Well, once again, on this COVID-19, I'm proud of our citizens. I think everybody's been doing a great job of, my wife said to say physical distancing instead of social distancing. She told me that's the correct term now. But we've been very fortunate in the fact that it is in the county, but we haven't had anybody that, knock on wood, as of right now, that has passed away from it. So we have to consider ourselves very lucky for that. So if everybody will keep doing their part, we're going to get through this.
Mr. Burgess?
Sean, Sandy, Ron, Toby, John, Kim, I support you. We got a big project on our hands now, and that's where we're at. So I'm here to support that project and see it through as conveniently we can get through this. So that's the position I'm in now.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
respected.
Commissioner Reuter?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm here 100% with him, with staff and you guys. We're going to do this as best we can for the best we can for our community. It is going to be a large project, and I want everybody to be ready, do what you can. Just hold in there. As the COVID goes, our community is doing a fantastic job. Businesses, people, I mean, we are doing so great. It's nice to go to Dillon's or anything like that, and you can see people are keeping their distance. People aren't trying to, I guess, jump next to somebody, jump around them if they're in the aisle. They're giving people their space, and it's showing in our case numbers how well it's working. So continue to keep that up, and then everybody who's helped out our local businesses through this time it's the most important thing you can do for our community right now, because these local businesses are your friends, families, neighbors. Keep them afloat, and you can keep Hayes afloat. And it's shown with how many people have made donations, so that with the school going down, that these local businesses can continue to support kids with meals and all the great things that people are coming up with for people to do while they're at home. I mean, it's incredible how great our community is. I'm so proud to be a part of it, and I think we're going to come out of this stronger than we've ever been.
I would agree. Commissioner Jacobs?
I want to also say that I think this body is going to do some great things over the next period of time. I appreciate the two newest commissioners. I know this was a really difficult decision and process for you both. I am in total respect of the way you went at it. You did your homework. You asked the right questions. I've served on a lot of boards, a lot of commissions over my time, and I don't think I've ever been more proud to sit with 5 people that are going to take on the projects in this community that are going to take us into the future. And it makes me very, very proud. Thank you all very much. Thank you, our community. I agree. It's amazing to me that all the people that I used to spend all my time around, I don't know where they are. I can't find them. I'll tend to get in the car and drive around and see if I can, and I can't. I think people avoid me maybe because I'm one of the old ones and I'm the vulnerable, so they kind of stay far away from me so they don't give it to me. That's okay. I wave. But seriously, I thank you all. I thank this community. It's a really, really, really special place. Yeah. And everybody that came forward and gave their opinion through this process, I respect each and every one of you. And thank you very much for doing that on both sides of the issue.
Yeah, I always echo what you guys all say. It's kind of hard when you're at the end here, but
we'll let you start with something.
No, I'm good.
We get all the good words.
Yeah, exactly. But, I've had so many people contact me the last couple of weeks, and I've tried, and I seen a couple tonight I didn't get back to. I mean, sometimes you just run out of time. But, and some people, I hate to bother you. I know you're busy, but, I mean, that actually bothers me when people say that because that's our job. We don't have to take a pay cut like they did in Topeka. But, But you know, it's, you know, we all ran for this, and you know, it's our job, and we know, you know, after tonight, I know headlines tomorrow won't be pretty for some of us, but that's part of it, you know. And I don't believe one of us is doing this for fame and fortune. I think we're doing it for our community, and I think we, you know, whether we agree or disagree, you know, we're going to be professional about it, and that's, and you know, and I commend staff. I mean, you know, you guys make our job easy. I've said that for years. You know, we ask you questions, and you don't hide behind, you know, what we ask you. And some of them, to you guys that live this, it's probably silly, but, you know, there's questions I get every day, and I'm like, man, I never thought about that. And so I fire off an email to Toby, and generally within minutes I get it back, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, you know. And so I thank you guys, and just thank the community for allowing us to do this. And, you know, and Commissioner Jacobs and all you guys are saying this. My days are all running together anymore, but I want to say it was Sunday when the high school, or not the high school, USC 49, so they couldn't serve food. And I had seen that McDonald's was instantly giving free or $1 Happy Meals away. So I asked my wife, I don't know how we can afford this, but it's the right thing to do with all the community support. And oh my gosh, instantly, I mean, people, we didn't ask for it, didn't expect it. The donations that come from just random people, you know, and people come now for a pizza. It's not much. It's a small little 6-inch pizza. And they're like, oh, no, please let me pay for it. And we're like, no, please let us give it to you. I mean, it's just, you know, and I know Commissioner Jacobs, and, you know, I apologize if you didn't want to be mentioned, you've given to many of the different restaurants in town. And it's just, it almost gives me goosebumps. I mean, everybody in this community is, I mean, there's so many people out of work. And, I mean, we all see all the negative, what's going on. And people are going above and beyond to help kids, help families out. And that's just, you know, I know there's people disappointed in a vote we had tonight, but my gosh, I'm pretty darn proud to be part of this community on what's going on. So thank you, everybody. We're adjourned.